gather together. Uh, Luke in the book of Acts right now is going kind of with story to story to story to story. A lot of quick movement taking place. He had the long section with Stephen's martyrdom, then Paul, then Philip, then Simon, then Philip, then, and so now it's going very quickly in the movement of what Luke is writing for us as we go forward. And then when he comes up to another sermon, he'll slow down. And you can kind of just see with the whole characteristic, this is how he goes forward. This is the Lord making these things happen. But what is the center of it? The preaching of the word, the proclamation of the word. And the areas where he really slows down in the book of Acts is when he goes forward and he shares the good news. This is what Simon said to the people. This is what Paul preached. This is what Peter preached. And he slows down intentionally because that is the key point of all of what is happening and taking place. So now, as he goes forward and he goes and he preaches and he's up in Samaria and proclaiming, he comes to an area where he runs into Simon, sometimes called Simon Magus, sometimes basically Simon the magician. And the verses for today, Acts 8, 9 through 11, are the ones that we're going to be looking at kind of what's happening and taking place here. So he's preaching, all these signs are taking place, people are flocking to Philip, and they are having joy over what's going on. So then, verse 9, but there's always got to be a little fly in the ointment, doesn't there? There was a man named Simon who had previously practiced magic in the city and amazed the people of Samaria, saying that he himself was somebody great. So he was one that practiced magic. This is the occult that we're looking at here. Now, the word for magician in Hebrew actually is also the same word for engraver, for writer. And with archaeological work that's been done, a lot of writings have been found that are kind of incarnations, kind of verbalizations of curses, of invoking spirits, and of casting spells. So a large thought of a magician was one who wrote down these things, and then you write these down, and therefore they have power as they go forward. So that is the spell. This is the invocation. This is the curse that is brought upon somebody. And it's brought forward. So, magician, that is an engraver, a writer of things, but specifically, especially in this case, one of involved in the occult. So he goes forward, and you notice he was good at what he did because it wasn't just a small village off to the side here. We're talking one of the best that's around there because he amazed the people of Samaria. So the area, the whole kind of you say nation of Samaria to a degree, that's what they were looking at. They were all looking and said, look at him. And what's fascinating is what's going to happen now because they lifted him and he lifted himself up very highly, as you can say, and was saying that he himself was somebody great. So he was putting himself up as this incredible person. So we come to verse 10. They all paid attention to him, from the least to the greatest. So this is what Philip was running into. He came, he did, he preached, people were listening. But then you had this man too. And he'd been there for a long time. And so here for a long time, they've been listening to him. And they said, this man is the power of God that is called great. Now, he wasn't calling himself God. The pagans might have put, him up as a god. But for the Samaritans, who had at least some of the Old Testament as part of their scriptures, they would not have gone forward and put him up as equal with God. But they would have said he is working through. And so that is the thought process here. And now you're going to have these two at heads, at going against one another. That'll be coming up here in the next days. But closing up with verse 11, and they paid attention to him. So they were paying attention to Simon, who, and we're not talking Simon Peter, we're talking Simon, a different person, Simon Magus, because for a long time he had amazed them with his magic. Now, is it possible that he had some kind of what you would call kind of magic going on when you're talking demons and spiritual powers? Possibly. Could it be a deception? Probably. And so, but no matter what, it was to direct people away from the Lord, away from God, is the point of what was taking place here. And as we come together tomorrow, we will look at then how this shapes out as the Lord is in charge. In his holy name we pray.